Hi everyone. I want to talk about the divine in witchcraft and cultivating a relationship with divinity and with your own sense of divinity and your own God self. So, um, because I am an ecstatic witchcraft practitioner and I come from a mindset that is more like a more mystical bent to it, I suppose. My witchcraft has a flavor of connection with cosmos and the divine that is really central, like a central thread that keeps my power flowing and keeps me connected to myself. So, um, yeah, I have found myself in many different witchcraft types of studies, but always find myself coming back to the ecstatic traditions. And my first witchcraft teacher in person, my first mentor, was from the Feri tradition or the Anderson Feri tradition. And that was um, a tradition that my soul felt so called to connect with. And I believe that the thing that was calling me to that tradition so strongly was the connection to the divine, to the God self, and this kind of mystical element to it. A lot of the people who study in that tradition seem to be interested in mysticism and also like queer cosmology. And those two things really aligned with my soul and something I was really longing for. So, but it's been a real journey. So, me and that first teacher had a falling out and have not connected again since. But of course, there has been many insights on my end around what happened there. And the further away from that experience I get, it's been years, the easier the perspective and the more soothed the grief of that ending feels for me. So, and recently I found myself drawn back into the concepts of that tradition after really turning away from it for several years and kind of just focusing on other paths. Um, it's kind of an offshoot with like some traditional witchcraft elements, some Wicca. It's a really fascinating tradition, and I think it carries with it some complexes around like appropriation and things that really need to be healed, which is why I feel like drawn back into it to kind of understand those things and to work through them. I'm really dedicated, so dedicated to discovering like the deeper underlying truth of the like surface experience and what that surface experience is symbolizing and what the deeper um like energy current is kind of like like what's happening there. So yeah, so I'm interested in returning to the fairy tradition or Anderson fairy tradition, and I never initiated into it, but I engaged with the practice for years, so it is a important part of my practice and a lot I think, or I'm led to believe, but I'm not sure because I'm not really in contact with people from that tradition, that the spirits that have been vital and constant presence in my practice are maybe the same spirits or entities. And I also feel the fairy that I work with are very much connected to that tradition. And yeah, and if you want to look it up and do some research, it's spelled Feri or Anderson, Fairy, Faery. So yeah, there is some really interesting deities that are housed within that tradition and some really powerful practices. So, one of the main practices though that I want to talk to you all about today is the accessing the divine self because this is a practice that I find really anchors me back into my practice if I ever like start to feel too deep in the muck, um, too like obsessed with the shadow, too like addicted to like the painful experiences or traumas and rejections, and because we like get used to those patterns and then we keep like flowing through them and keep finding them and um not saying we like draw those experiences to us necessarily because I think there's like a bigger story at play, which is we are all living in this capitalistic society that is built on things that harm us, and we don't like draw those negative experiences to us. It's just like the reality of the world that we live in. So, yeah, so connecting to your divine self. So, the belief is that we all are connected to the divine. And yes, we have like, there's the idea from a lot of mystical traditions that there's a spark of divinity within us, like animating our body. But if you're following a left hand path tradition, um, which is an occult term, but it comes from, I want to say, like Hindu spirituality, the idea like the left hand path is one where you are accessing your own divinity and you are seeing yourself as a god and accessing that part of you and your existence and how it connects to the greater cosmos. It's very powerful. And also just a really strong way to show up in the world, to be in touch with your divine self. So, the first witchcraft workshop I ever taught was on how to meet your divine self. And I look back on that now, and that was kind of like an intuitive thing. But starting in that place feels really powerful to me. Often, I found in my training, and maybe this is where I actually started, um, but if I were to teach it, maybe I would start with the divine self. But I actually started with like your dream self and your underworld self and your like double or your second skin self. That's like an animal, which I think can also be a really powerful way into the spirit realm. But I think connecting with the divine you and the God self you places you in a position where you are safe to really explore your witchcraft and to fully open up those powers, because they're going to be tempered by this broader perspective and this weighing and balancing of all of the like painful and hard things that come up when you engage in witchcraft, and everything comes up. It all gets exposed. It's like a path of exposure. If I was gonna say what's the most painful thing about being a witch, is that every complex, every little issue, it all has a light shined on it, because the whole path is about blending your light and shadow um, in a wholeness, in a completeness. So I feel establishing that connection with the divine and with your God self is a powerful way to keep you anchored and rooted through like navigating the ups and downs of this kind of work. So, and one fun exercise you can do to connect with your divine self or connect with your God self is, ground yourself, do a meditation, imagine like a ball of light or a being that's set right above you, right above your head, and using your inner vision or your inner senses, connect with what you believe this God self looks like. Like, what form does it take? Does it have a color? Does it have a mood? Is there a shape associated with it? And even though like God forms probably are pretty like shapeless and eternal and light or something that's like not necessarily in form, using a form to understand yourself helps you like symbolize it better and get in touch with like that deeper layer, that deeper God self. So it's like just like a goddess like Aphrodite has things associated with her like copper and water and love and concepts like sexuality and connection, jealousy and obsession. Like all of those things would be under the like in the Aphrodite vessel. And you as a divine being or a god form also have your own divine vessel with all of your archetypes and your tools and your colors and the things that you're going to be working with in this life to fully bring your god expression or goddess or divine self expression out into the world. So yeah, so I would recommend doing that exercise. It's kind of like creating like a D&D character. It's like if you were a divine being, what comes next? Do you have a slogan? Do you have a season that you love? Do you have a planet that would you be like very connected with, or cycles, or locations, landscapes, things like that? And it helps just like because human beings, we love form, and symbolism is how we like understand and navigate through life. It's a way to deepen the understanding you have of your own God self and then engage with that part of you. And eventually, that form, can change or shapeshift or even disappear, but it's a nice starting point to get to know yourself more deeply. So, that is what I have for you as far as your God self goes in your witchcraft practice. And let me know if you have any questions. And I love talking about witchcraft and sharing about these things. So, yeah, thank you.